Welcome to the Samuele Tini Show, where business, innovation, and sustainability converge to drive progress. Are you ready to uncover solutions shaping our future? Let's dive in. Welcome to a new episode. And today we are going to discuss something that is dear to my heart. We have discussed in the podcast, we have done, that is the B Corp, sustainability in business. And we do it with somebody that is leading the charge of B Corps and sustainability in Africa. So Lucy Muigai, who is the CEO of B Lab Africa. Thank you so much, Lucy, for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Samuel. I really appreciate it.
And Lucy, you are now at the forefront, all over, flying all over the continent, really to spearheading climate action, ESG, inclusive growth in Africa, how to do business differently. But before going to discuss there and the new standards that B Lab is pushing, our question, who is Lucy? What is your journey? How you have entered this world?
Thank you for that question, Samuel. So I started off in finance and accounting. Actually, that's what I studied in university. So I did a degree, my bachelor's, if I'm not wrong, that's what it's called, in accounting and financial planning. I became a chartered accountant in Australia. I did a master's in finance. So for the longest time, I'd say the first 8 to 10 years, my journey in a career was actually in finance and accounting. I started my career in Australia. And that's because that's where I studied. And then, I got to a place when I was turning 30 and I was like, so what do I want to do next? And I thought, let me just come back home, see how it goes. And then that's when I came back, the first 2-3 years, I still was working in the energy sector, insurance. And then B Lab was then opening its offices in 2017. And my first job at B Lab was actually also in operations. I was actually hired. I was employee number 1 to set up our operations now in Africa. Then we were called B Lab East Africa. So my journey started as the operations manager. Then I did business development programs, and then I became the CEO of B Lab Africa, I'd say 2.5 years ago. So I've been with B Lab now for 8 years, very passionate about the work that we do, very excited to see where the growth has been for the last 8 years, and excited to just see where we're going. And I know we'll discuss more about that somewhere. Then I have 2 young boys who keep me very busy and young. So when I'm not doing my day job, yes, now the other job that I have is just being a wife, a mother, just trying to be all rounded. You know how we say balancing work and life. So that's, in a nutshell, that's me. I'm very passionate about sustainability as well with you, Samuel. But I think it's just a perfect career trajectory with me, which aligns with my values as well.
And fantastic, Lucy. And it's so good, you see, because we have a all-round holistic career. It's not just the job, it's also the family and juggling, with family things, traveling in the world, being on the world is not easy. So even a woman leader, an African woman leader, it's an important thing. And we mentioned B Lab. Maybe for the sake of our audience, some of them might not be familiar yet, even though it's growing. What can you explain a bit the role and the mission of B Lab, and especially B Lab Africa?
Great. So B Lab is a global movement, and our mandate is redefining business success as not just being about profit. And here we still insist that profit is important, but we are really looking at both profit and purpose. Right? How do we also create a positive impact on all our stakeholders, the workers, customers, communities we operate in, and environment? So we do have over 30 plus offices across the globe, and B Lab Africa is one of the global partners for B Lab. Our mandate at B Lab Africa, same thing, redefining business as a force for good. We support businesses in Africa. So we do this primarily by certifying companies as what we call B corporations. And this is a designation that business is meeting a high standard of verified performance, accountability, and transparency. We currently have close to 10,000 B Corps in the world. In Africa, we have close to 100. We're emerging, we're still growing. And beyond certification, B Lab Africa also provides obviously the tools. Our tools are currently free that businesses can use to measure and manage their impact. And we also know that not every company can be a B Corp, but every company can be a good business. And that's why we started our programs so that they can also help now businesses to become more resilient, to be more sustainable, to be more inclusive. How do you think about all these things? So in a nutshell, that's B Lab Africa, and our mission. And we believe that, again, as I said, every business can be a good business in everything that you do.
And it's such an important thing because the role of business cannot be, it's very important, especially for our continent that is growing. In the next 20 years, we'll have the big population, a great business class, middle class, and this is the future, if not the present, I would say, of our planet. And why do you think the B Corp concept is so important for Africa right now? And how do you adapt? Because we know it was born there in California 2006, but now how you adapt it to our reality?
Yeah, Samuel, I'll just ride on what you just said about Africa. I mean, we have the youngest population in the world. We are resource rich, cultural diversity. Africa is just booming in terms of just how much potential we have. And our work at B Lab Africa is grounded in that same belief that businesses can and should contribute positively to the world we are in. We believe that businesses, in the power of businesses to, create the jobs that we are seeking for in Africa, drive the economic growth we want to see, and address some of the most pressing social and environmental challenges that we currently have in Africa. But for us to do this, we also have to measure this impact. It has to be measured, managed, and scaled. So we completely agree with you. And why the reason the B Corp model is so important right now, you said it, Samuel, that our core principles of B Corp are universal. The B Corp certification is standardized, meaning whatever the process is in Africa is the same process you'll go through, even if you're trying to certify in the US, UK, Australia, Asia, same process. However, when we come to the tool that businesses use to become B Corp certified, which the tool is called the B Impact. So what we have done is in this B Impact, there are 5 measure impact areas that you'll be looking at, which is obviously your governance structures, workers, community, environment, and customers. And so we just look at the company holistically. But one of the things you will do when you're being told to set up an account is we'll ask you to put in the country you're in, the sector you're in, and the size of the organization. So that's the first way we're able to now distinguish between a company in an emerging market and a company in a mature market. So let's say you're in a country like obviously Uganda or in Morocco. That is already in Africa. So that means there's some questions that will be weighted heavily more here in Africa than in a mature market, right? So when you look at and that's why it's so important how you put in your data at the beginning, because it also shows you the assessment that you will work on, right? So that's the first process that actually helps us in terms of making sure that we adapt the assessment to a local company. In that, we also have embedded best practice guides, right? As you're working through the assessment itself. With that also said, we also have created, as B Lab Africa, we've also created, local case studies and best practice guides that would be able to showcase B Corps that are doing really amazing work, that will be able to show you the way of how you can actually, as you start your journey, how you'd be able to improve your impact as well. Because we always believe data is so important to be able to showcase where can a company be. So this aspirational business are able to show as proof of concept that businesses can be both profitable and purposeful in Africa. It's just not a Western concept. It's a concept that can also be used here in Africa.
And it's so important, especially because we are building our economies and we don't have to make the same mistakes that were done maybe in Europe or
the US or even in Asia, but we can build better our economy from the start. And especially one thing is a big transformation that has been now is that the evolution of what the standards that has been there. So since the beginning, the assessment, the 80 points and all that, now is changing a bit. So we really want to ask what is about this transformation? Why is it relevant, especially in this moment?
That's a great question, Samuel. It's such a pivotal point at B Lab right now. So the new standards, as you've mentioned, are actually the 7 iteration building on the global success of our standards of the B Corp global movement. When I say 7 iteration is B Lab, we commenced our work back in 2006. And every 2 to 3 years, we actually iterate our standards to make sure they're still best in class at that point in time. So when I say the 7 iteration, I mean this is the 7th time we're actually now working on new standards. But this is going to be very different, right? So this moment is very powerful for B Lab, and that's why I said it's very pivotal, because for the first time, all B Corps globally will be required to meet performance expectations from across 7 clearly defined impact topics. This is actually a departure from the traditional cumulative points that we used to do, and we believe that this will create a more transparent and holistic framework for what it truly needs to be a B Corp. So some of these 7 key areas that we're looking at, Samuel, are purpose and stakeholder governance, climate action, which you all know is a really big thing, business, human rights, evaluating now supply chains and operations to make sure they're not complicit in violations, fair work, which I believe is actually a really big one in Africa, particularly because of how we have a youthful labor market, environmental stewardship and circularity. And here we're just making sure that companies are also working on their environmental impacts, government affairs and collective action, and also justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I've just mentioned briefly, but those are the 7 impact areas that will be now assessing all businesses that want to be a B Corp. So for African businesses, we believe that these 7 themes offer both a challenge and an opportunity. And when I say a challenge is because now they will demand deep reflection and transformation. But the opportunity comes in because they are creating a framework for African entrepreneurs to lead in creating inclusive, resilient, and sustainable economies, which is what we want. And just to mention a bit about the standards, Samuel, is that they have been shaped through multi-year consultation. We just didn't decide we're just going to go and have these standards. We have over 26,000 pieces of feedback from stakeholders globally. And then the standards have been designed to align with existing frameworks like the GRI, Fair Trade, Science-Based Targets Initiative. And the reason why we did this is so that businesses don't need to start from scratch. We know you're busy, right? We want you to build on what you already know and focus on truly what matters, which is really delivering impact on your stakeholders. But the one thing I really like about the standards personally is the fact that we focus on continuous improvement somewhere, right? B Corps will be required to demonstrate impact progress over time with specific milestones on year 3 and year 5, right? So that companies don't stagnate and to make sure that the certification is just not a one-time achievement. Yeah. And so for Africa, I do believe, again, as I said, it's an opportunity for us to lead from the front. It's an opportunity for African businesses to demonstrate growth, resilience, and purpose, right? That all of them can actually work with you being a profitable business. So it's very exciting.
And fantastic, Lucy. And I want to subsequent in that you said opportunity and challenges. Can you share with some of these unique challenges you encounter and some of opportunity, especially for African businesses?
Or challenges for companies that are trying to certify? Yeah, so what we have seen in Africa is, especially with, I would say, smaller businesses, that we still have an issue or a challenge. Let me use the word challenge here in terms of data collection. I do believe in Africa, just generally, we can do a really good job on collecting data and these really great case studies that would help put Africa in the forefront over the world. One of the things we do, and the reason why it's important for B Corp certification, Samuel, is because for a company to get certified, especially during the verification stage, which is really rigorous, where we ask for supporting documentation, we have businesses that have very creative business models. However, you see, you might know what you're doing, but you don't have data to actually show the great impact that you're creating. And the whole idea of verification is for you to show a supporting documentation. Is it photos? Is it, a manual? So a lot of businesses, especially the smaller ones, do really struggle with that. So that's why I am highlighting it as the biggest one, because I do think just generally we can do a really good job in terms of collecting data so that we can tell these amazing case studies about Africa and the great work that businesses are doing here, especially SMEs, since they are the backbone of the African economy. Another thing that we also struggle with, obviously, is when companies start the certification process. It is a rigorous assessment. I'm not going to lie. So we always request, now in hindsight, we always request, can there be somebody dedicated to do this work? So you see, sustainability is a fairly new concept, not to all organizations, but I would say compared to other markets, we're not there yet, right? So obviously, most organizations, you won't find like a sustainability manager. You'll find it coupled in like in marketing or, I don't know, HR somewhere, right? So when it comes to working on the certification, it becomes really challenging because you need capacity. You need someone with bandwidth, right? So that becomes the reason why sometimes the process takes so long, because we're going to ask for documentation. Maybe no one has actually been designated to focus on that. And then now it drags along. So I would say also from a capacity perspective where maybe companies might not have the resources financially, maybe to get somebody designated to be the sustainability manager to work on that becomes an issue. And then I would say, because we work in various countries, you'll notice there are various levels of awareness of sustainability and impact. And that's rightfully so, where you'll see maybe more advanced economies in Africa are the ones who are more in tune with what sustainability is and the importance of it compared to maybe smaller economies or ones that are not doing so well. So you always have to try and meet the business at where they're at in terms of their understanding of sustainability.
And that's so important, the last point you made. We need to make the business, because you cannot have a top-down approach, say, oh, take this, but a bottom-up, where we are, how we growing. And this is from the grassroots level, we're working, the businesses, so it's a process that, as we say, pole, slowly, we take them where we want to go. And on that, can you share? I'm sure you have so many, but can you share with us a story that, or a success case that really touch your heart as a B-Lab Africa, that can really inspire our business, can walk through this journey?
Thank you, Samuel. So as I said, in Africa, we currently have close to 100 B Corps. It's growing, it's exciting. It's always hard for me to choose one B Corp because I always don't want to look like I'm favoring any. So as I say this, I'm not favoring any B Corp. I love all our B Corps equally, but I always want, there's one that I'd like to highlight called Mr. Green Africa that's based here in Kenya. It is in the recycling and management sector, and they hold the distinction of being the first recycling company on the entire African continent that achieved B Corp certification. Now we do have a couple others that we've certified. So they've built an incredibly innovative and inclusive model where they are directly tackling plastic pollution while simultaneously creating dignified livelihoods. They achieved this because they've created actually collection centers across now the region and working directly with thousands of informal waste pickers, right? And most of these waste pickers are actually from some of the most marginalized individuals in the society. Yeah. So I really like that because I like the fact that they are also able to show that you can set up a higher standard in the industry, and also show that you can be both profitable because they have created a lot of strategic partnerships with multinationals that actually still use plastic in their packaging, and model it hand in hand with also doing deep social and environmental impact. We do know, especially in Africa, just generally, there's such a big shortage of what's this formal work. So there's a lot of people now that move towards the informal sector. And the fact that they're trying to actually give these people jobs in the informal sector, I find it very encouraging to follow suit. One of the reasons that they've loved being a B Corp as well is that they're able to tangibly measure in the social and environmental impact. Samuel, as we always say, you cannot manage what you do not measure, right? It's very important to always do that. They're also able to gain access to community of like-minded businesses where you're also able to access, exchange ideas and show each other how you'd be able to grow and how to be able to, see how you can create partnerships with businesses who see value in what you do. So again, as I said, we have very many, but I thought I should mention that I love that aspect of how do we able to make profit as we also try and see how are you solving a social and environmental impact. With that said, Samuel, just for me to also mention is I do believe even the traditional businesses can still create impact. I know the example I've shown is one with a business model where they are also trying to solve a social and environmental impact. But I always say, I say, every business can be a good business, even a traditional business like a law firm, right? Because even as we do B Corp certification, we look at both operations and business model. So if you actually have really good operations that are creating impact, you can still be a certified B Corp and you are still a good business.
And this is very important. In fact, my question is this. Sometimes also for me in the communities, we try to discuss maybe the importance of regenerative agriculture. We try to discuss this. And the community say, yes, but can you show some info? Which is the benefit? Which is how we do this? Because we are talking about, and especially you also, we are talking about the livelihood, the impact, the life that is behind a company that also has a responsibility towards families and people. So if somebody asks, what are the most significant benefits, especially for African companies that can gain for integrating sustainability the way of that B Lab is proposing?
Thank you, Samuel. So I'll start off by mentioning, so we've just released as B Lab Global, the network, we've just released our 2024 global annual report. And I found one of the statistics I found very interesting is that 56% of consumers say they use certifications to make purchasing decisions. Yes, I know it is a global report, but I do believe that actually now is trickling down in Africa, where I would say the last 2-3 years, sustainability has actually been front and center in conversations, right? So we are seeing now African consumers, especially the younger demographic, are increasingly aware and discerning, and they want to support such businesses that are aligning to their values and are contributing positively to their communities and the environment. So the first thing I'll mention is that it enhances your brand reputation and customer loyalty, right? It helps you distinguish yourself from competitors, if I put it simply, right? And we've also seen a rise of, obviously, in investment, which is more impact investment, ESG investment. So it also helps you access more diversified funding opportunities, right? To now, especially financial institutions that are looking at that element of ESG and ESG impact, and they've put in metrics. And the fact that, B Corp certification is already it has a good brand out there, it has a good reputation, it sets you up for success in that area. And then I think what else it helps in terms of is, you see, again, as I said, you cannot manage what you measure. So there's a way it helps you now when you're starting to measure and looking at where you're at. I believe that it also helps you to look at your business in terms of how are you able to develop new products or services and business models that solve local problems, right? Such as clean energy, the challenges we have here in terms of, sustainable agriculture. So it helps you just be more innovative to see how you'd be able to solve these specific social and environmental problems we have here in Africa.
And it's very important because also the foundation, the discussion we had, during the discussion at Bilab, I recall our meeting at the Strathmore and other, it's really important how also it give you some guardrail, a route on how you can build a company in a different way. And sometimes, especially for African founders, is such an important part because you can really focus on what matters and what is important, and you start from on a good way. So it's also good to mention this, and it's really important. The certification. We see here in Kenya the success of some companies, and they are proudly B Corp, and people buys, and we know that people buy. We don't mention names, but we know them, and the reputation, and because people say, oh, this is a brand I can buy. I want my kids to get this milk because I know it's clean, or I want my people, those issues. And it's really the investments and also measuring, because that is the part. And on that, I think now you are leading a revolution, because we know that in our country we are emerging, we are good. You are at the forefront of the transformation. In the next 20 years, I think that our country will be number one in the planet. People may be in
I love
the,
that, Samuel. I agree with it.
in the Western world, or sometimes even in Asia, it's often overlooked. But in the next 20 years, Africa will be at the forefront in everywhere. Innovation, agriculture, everywhere, the heritage we have, So what is the perspective, especially from African businesses? How they can balance within this tumultuous growth that is happening, and how they can navigate this, and how do you see the future coming?
Thank you. I think that's a very important question. And I'd say the first thing is, how do you integrate purpose into your core business strategy? Sustainability, not as an add-on. To be honest, I still believe that is the case. It's changing. It is changing, but it's still the case where, sustainability might still be put under marketing. Nothing wrong with it, but how do we ensure that we embed it or bake it into your strategy, that you're working on it, and it's not just CSR? Yeah. I do think that's the biggest thing, that there needs to be that mental shift or mind shift, and even cultural shift in Africa, where it's just not a nice to have, but a must have. And you have that long-term perspective, not short-term. Sometimes I know we have so many challenges in Africa, political, environment, but how do we move from just looking at short-term profit to just looking at long-term sustainability and how it will help us in terms of maintaining our employees, because they're very happy, or we're working very well with our community, so they'll buy our products, So I think that just needs to be that mental shift and mindset shift and cultural shift. It has started, but I do think there just needs to go a bit more deeper on that. And then I believe also in terms of focusing on local first, and stakeholder engagement. And what I mean here is, how do we prioritize local sourcing of raw materials? How do we continue buying? The way I'm here in Kenya, and I know we usually say what, buy Kenya. I forget. But really, how do we make sure that
Buy Kenya, build Kenya, yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that, Summer. But how do we make sure that we are supporting our people? I think it's so important, right? And not always looking at, everything that we import is better. Because I do think there's a mindset there that also needs to shift a bit, because we want to support our people so that people have jobs. That's how we create local jobs, right? That's how we create local supply chains, by purchasing local first. How do we make sure that even the talent that we're getting is still first of all local, right? So I do think this, that, and that's how we support now these local economies, reduce logistic costs. But I do think there's something that can help us now in terms of balancing now profit and being purposeful, right? And then the last thing, and I know I've mentioned this so many times, even to your audience, I do believe we need to measure what matters, because that's how you're able to communicate the impact that you're creating, and we'll be able to create this data that we need. How many local suppliers are you engaging? How many percentage of employees are from your local community, right? These are the things, actually, if you look at our B impacts, anyone who works on it, you'll notice these are the questions we ask. They're actually just everyday operational questions. But that's how you're able to create impact as a business. So I do encourage you to also just have a look at our B impact, and you'll be able to now start looking at those questions and how you'll be able to now start balancing purpose and profit.
And we can add that is free, because you can
Oh yeah,
register.
it's free. It's free.
You go online, you just pay when you want to register, you want to be certified. So you can get the questions, and start learning, even if you don't do final, but then at least you start your journey. And talking about journey, it's really what is next. We discuss about the standards, this big transformation, really embedding a different type of business within the model, and really strengthening also the process. And what now, what's next for B Lab, and especially for B Lab Africa? What really excites Lucy now for the next maybe years?
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, you've already mentioned it, Samuel. The first thing right now for us, obviously, is preparing our current B Corps and any other companies that are interested in B Corp certification for our new, more ambitious standards that I've just spoken about, and just making sure that all companies are ready from 2026 to now embark on this new journey. So that's our top priority as it stands. We still want to, again, as I said earlier, Samuel, is we do recognize that not every company can be a B Corp, but we do strongly believe that every business can be a good business. So we are working on also strengthening our programmatic work. We already have programs in place that we actually already piloted one this year, focused on SMEs, the Resilient Sustainable Business Program, that provides practical tools for mainly SMEs to integrate sustainability and be more resilient businesses. But our work is to be able to, how do we work with all companies that are interested in being impactful? And we believe programs is a good way of now helping companies to be better business and more resilient businesses. We want to build a stronger community. We are doing quite a few events in our strategic focus markets. We do have a summit coming up in October in Johannesburg. So you're all welcome to join across the globe. But the whole idea is it helps us in terms of just having a stronger community, bringing everyone in the ecosystem. Our events, we always try to bring everyone in the ecosystem, be it academia, be it government, be it not-for-profit, private sector, anyone whose mandate is how do we make business a force for good. We believe a lot in partnerships as well. There's no way we can do it solo, Samuel. There's no way we can do it solo. So for us, we are always looking for like-minded organizations that we can partner with and be able to continue growing a community of businesses that are using the work as a force for good. So I would say that's what I'm excited about, excited to see more job growth based on the work that we're doing, which will create that ripple effect of, stronger economic growth and stronger economies, stronger job growth, solving some of these social and environmental problems. So the future is bright in Africa, Samuel. We just need to have the right structures and strategies in place. Because again, as we said, we already have the capital in terms of human capital. We have natural capital, so we're very rich on that. We have a culture that's very diverse. Like everything for us is right. We just need to take it and go forth and conquer.
And I think that is the a very strong message we are launching today. I think we have discussed it so many times. That's why we are here. And then that's why we are talking from Kenya to the world, as we say, from the podcast. And it's such an important part. I think maybe we can encourage the listener to go and see Bilab Africa, discuss and see, engage, because it's such an important topic.
Yeah.
What I can say, Lucy, thank you so much, Asante Sana, for this wonderful episode. I think it's been amazing having you today.
Thank you for having me, Samuel. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak about what I love to speak about, sustainability and the work we're doing here at Bilab Africa. Thank you.
Asante Sana, Lucy.
Are you satisfied after this wonderful episode? Let's continue together our sustainability journey.